Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
Welcome to Stress-Free Living. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Ray Samich, and I'd like to introduce all of you to my longtime radio colleague, co-host of our program, and my dear spiritual brother, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you today?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you. Great to be with you and with all of our guests here that we are viewing their wonderful faces from all around the world on our Zoom call, and however you're listening, watching, being part of the show. We are so grateful for you, and thank you for spending some of your time with us. Ratanjit, we talked last week about a lot of different topics, and one of the things that rolled through the conversation was about self-love and how self-love is maybe misunderstood and maybe even misunderstood by us in terms of what is the value of it. I was kind of taught growing up that you didn't hate yourself. You're not supposed to hate yourself. You're supposed to love yourself, but you don't go overboard on loving yourself. You go overboard on loving others, and it's others first. And so if it's a difference of saying, I'm going to do something for me, I'm going to do something for somebody else instead of me. And that doesn't mean I don't love myself. It just means that I don't think of myself first. But there's a lot of people that think self-love, whatever the definition of that might be, is critical to a successful life, a happy life. If you don't love yourself first and foremost, you don't have anything else. Just in general comments, and then we'll dive into it. What's your thoughts just on self-love? Is that something that is vital for people to be happy in their life?
You know, when I was a child, we did not have these sophisticated toys and television to watch and internet and all that. So we basically played outside with stones and things like that. We used to collect these stones which were round and this thing, and we used to play with these little stones and make it. Supposing when you are playing with stones, you discovered a raw diamond, and you played with basically that as a stone. You liked it, but you never knew the real value of that diamond. And you had this stone which was rough on the edges. It was not as smooth. And your other friend had some stones. They're very smooth. So you didn't like your stone because it was not smooth, but you liked the other people's stone. So basically, you did not know the worth of your stone, real worth of what you possess. Right. Same thing happens with our self-love, because we do not know the real us, the real self. So our real self is defined by the worldly, how many degrees you have, how handsome you are, and what your forefathers are, what your gender is, which country you are born with. All these attachments define us. And if those collection is not worldly appreciated, you will not appreciate yourself. So,
I love the analogy you just gave. I love that because everybody can comprehend what you're talking about. I don't know if that answered my first question though, so I'm going to kind of ask it again. As good as that was and helpful as that was, if we would have known that that was a diamond, okay, so we knew the worth of it, but we still know that that's us. It is so. Am I still supposed to take care of myself first? Is that the way that I'm supposed to be, or am I supposed to take care of others first? It's maybe a stupid comparison, but when you're on a airplane, every time you fly, you hear the flight attendant say, first of all, when the mask comes down, if it comes down, you put it on yourself first before you help a child or an elderly person that may need assistance. You make sure you put the mask on yourself first. We've all heard that thousands of times. Is that the way we're supposed to do it with love? Are we supposed to love ourselves first before we can love others? Or what do you think on that?
you know, our feeling or whatever we conduct ourselves, the whole thing is rotated around this universe, which is us. It is through me, I feel other things. So if I don't take care of my eyes, I won't be able to see properly. If I don't take care of my hear, the best music I cannot hear. And similarly, so first thing we have to make sure that this equipment which is given to us is fully capable of working. So it is allowing us to not only feel what our sensory pleasures can give us, it also gives us to make a difference, to feel good. So our self-worth comes from taking care of the self first, because it is through this self we would enhance our capability of feeling the self-worth. Right?
And thank you. That's good too. If you go to a gym, if you go to a fitness club, fitness center and hang out there for a while, and anyone who knows me knows that I'm not one of those people, but I still am familiar with a lot of people that are in that environment. There's people that are in there because they legitimately are doing what you just said, taking care of themselves first. They said, I have to make this machine that I have, this gift that I have, the best it can be and keep it healthy and strong, and they eat right and they work out right. And so there's certainly people in a gym that are doing that. But there's also a larger majority of people that are in that atmosphere that are doing it because they just want to be macho. They want to be, really cut and strong and when they take their shirt off, they want all the women to gasp, or the women want to make sure that their body is perfect in every aspect. There's a lot of vanity in that environment. And so that's kind of my question, okay? There's the part that says I'm doing things to be healthy. I'm eating right, I'm living right, I'm I'm taking care of my machine so that I can be the best and add the value to the world. But then there's the part that says I love myself so much, I have this ego that's associated with it, and I have to be perfect. I have to look perfect. I have to be the perfect weight. I have to be, you know, bulk and strong and handsome or beautiful and all these things. Where do you cross the line? Where does our vanity as the part of self-love be too much?
What happens is there is a egoic love, and there is a real true self-love. And egoic love basically comes from it depends on what others would think of me.
Mhm.
And if they look at my great body, they will compliment me. They will, and if I have a better car, they'll, everything which happens to us from the egoic love is outwardly compliments from others. The true self-love, the inner love, is our feeling of knowing again yourself. Basically, once you understand that this human body is a housing for the divine force which enlivens it, the divine force, which you can call it God, or you can, is an omnipresent one God which is present in us. So then what this human body becomes is a temple of this human for universal force. So now when you go to temple, you have enormous respect. You do things for the temple. So then you nurture this human body in the right manner because you are nurturing, taking care of the temple. Whereas once you understand that human body is me, this is me, egoic control comes in our human body, what others will think. So most of us end up spending our entire life wondering and worrying about what others would think, rather than serving this. And once you serve your own human body, the other's human body is also a temple. So you become service, you become value-adding entity. Instead, and naturally, you begin to love yourself because you are loving the temple. You are not worrying about all these worldly wealth or possessions or accolade or good degrees or any of all those things, because you are still a temple, right?
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this, clarifying how that works. I put a strong title on it of why do we hate self-love? Because there are people that I know that they really don't like themselves. And and one of our regular guests here, who always comes up with great questions for us, he asked me to ask you if there's a difference between dislike and hate. And I'm curious on that too, because I just gave you a comment, and I actually know people that dislike themselves, and I consider hate even a stronger dislike. I know people that hate themselves. I know people that are so down on what they've done in the past, the mistakes they've made, and the um, continuity of those mistakes, how many times they've fallen into their bad habits, that they are so down on themselves that they actually hate themselves, which, you know, I spend a lot of my time trying to make them feel better about themselves. So I'm going to ask you, first of all, that question to clarify that. Do you think there's a difference? Are we just mincing words there, or is there a difference between dislike and hatred?
What happens is when you are surrounded by situations or people who are more egoic than you are, and they're basically always praising themselves. Look what I have done. You are not capable of doing this. So if you are condemned constantly by your friends or by your family and whatever you have done as a consequence, it gives you a self-image about yourself, which you do not like. And ultimately, you in the egoic mode, your self-love is dependent on what others think of you. And as a consequence, you have to have these things around you, your degree or your beauty or your muscles or your or something people would appreciate, people would look, and that's what we end up collecting all our life because we want to be somewhere appreciated by people. By somebody is going to look at me. I have this degree, I have this title, I have this possession, I have this car, or I have so many areas. Everybody is working on those issues. And half of what we end up doing in our more than half, 90% of what we end up doing is pleasing the world, what people will think of us. And basically, we are hardly worried about what we really think of us and what we want to achieve. And most of us end up defining ourselves from our past life, what we have done. So when somebody is defining you, they're always looking back. This is what this person has achieved, this person has done. Nobody looks at you, your true potential of making a difference in future, which is unlimited. That's who you are. Once you understand that you have a potential of doing amazing things, regardless of your past, regardless of your degrees, regardless of your wealth, regardless of your structure, it changes you. And that's what you are.
You talk about how we kind of rank ourselves, if you will, rate ourselves based on what other people say about us, or how we compare how we look, or how well we talk compared to others, how well we perform in athletics or in music or whatever we're doing, and we compare ourselves. And so I think where we don't like things about ourselves, we don't like the way we look. We're too heavy, we're too short, we're too big, or whatever it is. We that does cause a dislike, I think, and a lessening of our self-love. I think it's, in my opinion, and I would like to have yours. I think it goes to a stronger hate when there's things about ourselves that we know that are just mean. They're just evil, evil of sorts. And I use that word probably too strongly, but like we haven't been fair to people. We haven't been honest with people. We haven't lived the life that we're proud of with integrity. We've made a serious series of mistakes. And now I think it goes beyond a dislike for ourselves, but it goes to the level of I hate myself. I hate myself for doing that. And again, I can only share personal comments with people where they just say, how could anybody like me? Because they know that I do this, and they know I've done this, and I hate myself for it, and I think everybody hates me. I mean, I feel so bad with these situations because it is such a sad point when people feel that way. And I mean, I think that's actually, as we're talking this through, I think that's a reason why a lot of people do get so depressed and even commit suicide, because they don't think that they're worthy of being loved. They can't love themselves, and they don't think anybody can love them.
Yeah, there is another very interesting thing. In order for me to feel good about myself, there are two paths. One is by achieving something, by my talent or my thinking or my this thing I achieve. The other path is by condemning others.
Yeah.
And that is what goes on. In order for me to feel good, I condemn others. So there is so much of that is going on. They condemn others, we condemn others on things they cannot many times help. Their size, their their structure, their color, their race. There's so many things which they cannot help. And we condemn themselves. We classify themselves. And as a consequence, we make them think they are lower. And again, to be free of that situation, to be immune to others' criticism, we have to really find our true self. And then you become completely free of, you have a shield, and nobody can criticize you because you know the truth. And another, after you take the break, we'll talk about another element of basic truth which we ignore.
Okay. Make a note of that so we don't forget to come back and talk about that, because I know that's something that's going to be very important. We're just kind of opening the chapter here, unraveling so many different questions about why we have or don't have self-love. Why is it important? We still haven't really had a lot of answers yet, but we've had some interesting conversation. We hope you're enjoying it, and we'll be back with much more about why do we hate self-love. This is Stress-Free Living. Stay with us. All right, I'm just barely getting through your questions and my own. Anybody have any other questions or thoughts that you want to share with us that we can ask Ratanjit?
Yeah, just wanted to, it is on the lighter note, the Prime Minister of India in the recent elections showed his self-love, and he portrayed him as a not a biological person, a messenger of God. So is that a self-love or what it is?
I missed that. I don't know if I didn't hear it right again. Could you say that one more time? I'm so sorry, Judge.
the the Prime Minister of India in the recent elections
Yes.
portrayed himself as a messenger of God and not born as a biological person, and so that he can rule, he is sent by God for ruling all over India. So is it a self-love or what it is?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I did see the election. I saw that he didn't win anywhere near as much as he thought he was going to. Um, okay, Sale, raise your hand. Go right ahead.
Hello. Sorry, I just have a quick question, and
Yes.
that's to experience self-love. There's always a certain amount of self-talk that we must have with ourselves, and I often find myself having negative self-talk. Like while I'm playing a sport, I always criticize myself. Like, what was that silly shot? That was such a stupid move. Why'd you do that? So my question is, for Ratanjit ji, what kind of self-talk should we have with ourselves, and how important is it to have that kind of self-talk?
All right. I like it. We will, I guarantee we will come back. We won't come back now in this one, but we're going to do that later on. Okay. When we get to the how to. Good question. We are back on Stress-Free Living. Ratanjit and Ray, yours truly, Ray Samich, interacting with our Zoom guests in between during our breaks, and we'd love to have you be part of that. You can check out over 100 of our programs that are fully recorded there for you to take with you, listen in your car, and your cell phone, on your computer, laptop, iPad, whatever you might have. Check out on YouTube, Stress-Free Living Radio. Stress-Free Living Radio, you'll find all the shows, but you'll also find our Zoom link on there. And that way, if you'd like to become a part of our regular Saturday morning live audience, we'd love to have you. Join us from people all across the country and around the world that make this a part of their Saturday morning. We'd love to have you. Ratanjit, this is really interesting, and I'm loving the feedback from our audience here too, our Zoom guests, because there's just so many different ways that we can go on this topic. But I hope you remembered what you were going to say just before we took a break, because I wanted to give you the floor on that one. What was the other truth about this whole thing that is important for us to know?
Basically, all our life, we are trying to become somebody else. We try to copy somebody else. We are told, look at your other fellow. He's doing this and this and this. You should copy. We have people who are guiding. We are supposed to have mentors. We are supposed to copy them and be like them. Whereas the universe has never, ever duplicated anything. Everything is constructed in its original shape. So 8 billion people, they're all unique. So our purpose of this journey to find the self-love is, first, we have to fully understand that we are unique. So in that uniqueness, we have to find our uniqueness, continuously discover what is unique about us. So this unveiling itself is very interesting and very rewarding, rather than copying somebody and being rated and designated and defined by somebody else. We must always define ourselves. So this thought process has to be given at the very early age, because a lot of people have low self-esteem because they were told that in the childhood, and because they had childhood difficulties, they carry abuses, they carry all their life, and they're defined by those abuses. And that requires professional help to get them out of that. So it is very important that we must make a child aware of how unique they are. Right?
Very wise statement. Thank you. Very, very important, because we all know that if we don't give that foundation to our youngsters, if we don't make them feel good about themselves, and I don't mean in an egoic way, I just mean that they have that self-confidence and they have that self-worth, then that's going to propel them for a whole different life than if they don't have that instilled in them. You've confused me though a little bit, Ratanjit, because I thought we had talked, you had presented especially, that we have self-worth because we are a temple for the divine. And so within every human being is this amazing empowerment because of the divine within us. And so that alone is a reason to have self-love. And it's kind of misnamed because it isn't so much self-love, it's divine love that's within ourselves, if you kind of look at it that way. But that's the reason that we should automatically have self-love and self-worth at the same time. In the last comments, you added the uniqueness of every individual. We're all created uniquely, like a snowflake or a leaf on a tree. And so each one of us has different talents, intellects, skill sets, capabilities, emotions, et cetera, et cetera. And so we need to grasp those unique aspects of us and love those and know what those are. But how does that fit? How do those, in a way, it seems that those are contradictory, because are we supposed to be loving ourselves because we all have the same divine within us, or are we supposed to be loving ourselves because of the unique human physical talents and skills and capabilities that we each have as a human being?
Basically, everything we possess, everything, or talent, or uniqueness, or everything, even the worldly things we possess, everything without any exception is a liability and an asset. Depends on how we use it. So it's a very good example, is very good dish, very healthy food. If you keep on eating, it's going to become a liability. You have to use it in a certain quantity for it to work. It's magic. Similarly, all our qualities, whether I have very sharp intelligence or I have, so they are always going to be a liability and an asset. So how do we convert these things into our asset? Because these qualities, these uniqueness which we are gifted, must be focused into a end target, end result, which is to add value, to serve this temple of ours and serve the temple around us and serve the society, which is a collective of temples. And so those unique talents, if they are used to exhibit or enhance our ego, then they become liability. When they are used to enhance, to add value, to serve, they become our assets. So it doesn't matter whether you are uniquely intelligent or you are uniquely perceptive or you have unique artistic talents or you have a scientific talents or whatever you are gifted with. If they are guided by your ego, they are going to become your liability. And when they are guided by your selfless serving, they become your assets. Ray?
I love so many of what you're things, so much of what you're saying today. I really, it's so powerful. But sometimes, again, respectfully, you're not exactly answering the question, and I think it's an important question to ask. So you've given me a different answer, which was excellent, but you didn't answer what I needed to know. Or maybe you did by saying it's both. So I'm going to ask the question again. Is self-love, is the most important aspect of self-love the fact that we have the same oneness, the same one divinity within us? So we're all equal in that aspect, and that's enough right there for us to love ourselves because we are empowered by that universal divine. And or is the self-love because that divine has given us unique gifts, talents, skill sets, capabilities, emotions, on and on and on, that are unique to us, like every snowflake is different. And I should be empowered by the uniqueness of those gifts I've been given from the divine in order to serve. Is it a combination of both of those things that create my self-love, or is one more important than the other?
Both are truths, and they have to complement each other. In absence of one, doesn't work. So what happens is, if your uniqueness is not utilized, you only consider this is my temple, this is it. But your uniqueness is going to enhance the beauty of the temple and the capability of the temple. Those things, until they are not put into practice, you are not going to have the true self-esteem and self-love.
So as you are answering that, it's becoming very clear. That second aspect that I just talked about, all those uniqueness, that's actually the egoic love that you refer to, isn't it? Without the divine, without that divine truth, that empowerment of the
Yes.
divine and the purpose, then the fact that I'm great at baseball, I'm great at science, I'm brilliant, I'm athletic, whatever I think about myself, those things are just egoic, hollow love.
They feed your ego in absence of
Yeah.
the truth of knowing that you are a temple.
Yeah. So, and I think maybe as we're talking this through, maybe that's what even leads us to the disliking of ourselves, or the further hatred of ourselves, because we almost feel hollow. Okay, we know we've got these gifts. We know that we can do so much with them. And so, we're a tremendous musician, and we attain great success, and everybody idolizes us, but we don't really feel, when we're alone, we don't really feel like we're doing what we should be doing with that. Even though maybe we've made millions of dollars, and everybody knows our name, but it's a very hollow success if we don't have a mission associated with that.
When you are in the egoic mode of knowing that these are unique talent, your egoic mode is going to say, why am I not making more money than this other? My talent is better than him. And you will feel depressed. And ultimately, it is going to sooner or later convert into self-hate.
That makes sense too.
Right?
Well, that makes so much sense, because our thermometer, it goes off the charts then. Now
Yes.
we're instead of a fulfillment, and a peace of mind that says I'm doing important things for the good reasons, I am suddenly always comparing myself to others. And I could be the second richest rock star in the world, but I'm still worried that I'm not number one, that I'm not the
Yes.
biggest one,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And even if I'm number one, I might still say, but I should be bigger. I should be even more powerful. I'm still
And,
not
and
as
then you
big
are
as I
worried
should.
whether I'm going to retain my number one position.
Right. That's right. Now I'm worried about number two.
Is
He's
is
coming
is
up
my
fast.
first
Yeah,
is my last song was a hit? Am I going to produce another hit?
you're right. You are that. And you know what? We've all had, I think, maybe I'm wrong to assume that, but I think most of us have had a glimpse of that, at some point in our lives. We've had a moment of success somewhere along the lines, where when we should be enjoying it, when we really should be just, you know, be in a grateful mode and saying thank God for this moment of wonderful accomplishment. Instead, we do have that fear. We have that greed come in, or that envy, that just kind of destroys that beautiful feeling, because we do think, well, but it still isn't as good as them, or is it going to last, or will I ever do that again, and all those kind of things. Um, I think if we think back about it, we've all had those moments in there that have destroyed a beautiful opportunity to just be in gratefulness and joy because of those human emotions that come in. This is a fascinating topic. I hope you are enjoying it as well, as we're kind of just talking about self-love, self-worth. When we come back, we will continue the conversation, but we're also going to try to do some how-tos, some takeaways here today that says, how can all of us understand and actually carry out more self-love in our life? And is there a direct connection to self-worth if we love ourselves more? This is Stress-Free Living. We'll be back in just a moment. All right, everybody, go ahead and fire away. Any other questions or comments? I haven't had a chance to read the chat. I'm sorry if people are chatting. All right, great. Anyone having a thought? I've got your question coming up, Sahil. I guess we're on our own, Ratanjit. Where they're all sleeping. Maybe they're sleeping.
They're not talking to us.
This might be better than sleeping pills. We have a new marketing approach for our show. Come
I
fall
have a
asleep with
comment,
us.
Ray. I have a comment.
Go ahead, Brian.
So I'll jump in here. So part of self-love and listening to everything is has a lot to do, I feel, with your upbringing. I had parents that saw the worth in each of their children and taught us to understand our value, taught us to understand to be good and to do good for others. And in that journey with my parents, and they had a long life, and I was very, very close with them, and they're past now, but in that journey to the day they died was to encourage us to see the value and the beauty in ourselves, but also in others. And that encouragement led us to have a happy and a fulfilled life together.
This is wonderful. Get to the question, because we're coming back. This is wonderful, but go ahead.
That's it. But I'm just saying that's
okay.
what I'm getting out of this, and I think it's important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is Stress-Free Living. Ray Samich, Ratanjit Sandhi with you, interacting with our wonderful guests during the break, and we hope that you will consider joining us. Again, check out Stress-Free Living Radio on our YouTube channel if you'd like to join us. Ratanjit, so great to interact with our wonderful people here that are part of this. And there's been a message that has come through from a couple of different people that talk about, and you've referred to it too, in terms of parenting and instilling this in people at a young age. And I guess even if it hasn't been instilled, maybe this program can help instill it, no matter how old you are, with your 6 or 60 or 106. If we have this within us, if we have this awareness of the divinity within us, therefore the abilities that divine has instilled upon us to add the highest value of service to others, if we have that, we have the highest worth, we have the highest value. And no matter what we've accomplished or not accomplished, no matter what we've done wrong in the past, whatever bad habits we may have exercised in the past, we have this incredible potential that God has given us every day when we wake up to fulfill that purpose. And so with that thought, if we can instill that, especially in young people at a youngest age, the world is theirs, right? I mean, their life can be so much more fulfilling for them.
Absolutely. Your core character, your core psychology is formed before the age of 6. and that carries throughout the life. So it is extremely important that we must respect and teach the children that they are unique and they should not ever look upon themselves as what is missing. So ultimately, there's another psychological thing we have in our system. Your human body is designed to take care of itself. Something is hurting, it draws attention so that we can take care of it, right? So when my example is when or one tooth is missing, your tongue always goes there. So we are always going to focus on what we don't have, what we don't think we, you know. So whether I'm poor, I'm constantly focusing on the money. I'm less educated, I'm constantly focusing on the degrees. I'm a smaller home, better. I'm always, so what I don't have, I'm going to focus on those. But by what I have, what I can do is my asset through which I can overcome everything else. So we must focus on what we can do, what we are gifted with, what I can control, and we have to accept what we cannot control, and whatever we can do in order to gather in the column of our ego, we must always be grateful and neutralize the ego, and which allows you availability of more of those things, more capabilities, and more desire, more energy to make a difference. Ultimately, the starting point of self-love is the self-awareness. If that is missing, you can never really comprehend and reach to self-love. Self-awareness, who you are, how you are designed, has to be very constantly remembered and be grateful for. Right?
And I'm listening to your powerful words. I I think that a lot of times we focus on what we do, especially on what we have done, that impacts our self-love or our self-hate or self-dislike. And it seems to me after this program that is, while that's important, what we do in our life is very important, but it's so much more important to base our self-love, our self-worth on who we are or what we are and what's within us, giving us that endless opportunity to change what we have done and what we're going to do going forward. And it's interesting because sports is a pastime, and sports is, you know, kind of meaningless in life in many ways. We all get so hyped up on our local teams and our college teams and everything else, and we all get, caught up in that. And it really doesn't mean that much in the big picture of life. But I think there's a big lesson to learn from the fact that every game starts again at 0-0. And every game is a new opportunity to do it right. And so if we get so hung up on what we have done wrong, and that causes us to hate ourselves and to have no self-love and no self-worth, we forget that like every morning is a new game. Right? I mean, every day we can take that empowerment of the divinity and those special, unique skills and talents and capabilities, and we can win the next game, and we can win every game doing the right things.
When we are in the egoic mode, we often talk negative to ourselves. I should have done this. I've this, and when you are in the oneness mode, you're always reminding yourself of the great talent you have and be grateful for those. Thank you, God, for giving me this talent. Thank you, Divine, for putting me in this condition. Thank you. So as a consequence, all your assets, you are in the egoic mode, you are thinking always, I can have better. You're always comparing. Whereas in the grateful mode, whatever you have, you are grateful for. You are again, because you are aware of those things as a gift, you are, whenever you are using and getting good results, you don't take the egoic uh, credit for that. You become thankful for having the opportunity to add value through those assets. So that is how you continuously remain in the grateful mode. And in that grateful mode, your human body has enormous healing power and self-nurturing power. And it makes you physically feel better. Also mentally feels better because you have avoided the egoic negativity in your brain. Ray?
So one of our guests asked us about self-talk. They said, in order for me to have self-love and self-worth, inevitably bad things happen to us. It's just going to be the way that life is perceived as bad. I should define that better. Things happen to us that we perceive in the moment are bad. They are negative, they hurt, setbacks, whatever it might be. In those moments when we're maybe questioning our self-worth and questioning whether we love ourselves or not, is the self-talk that we should do through those moments, does that come down to gratefulness? What you just said, is that how we get ourselves out of that? By defining all the reasons we should be grateful, even in times of distress or setbacks?
You know, when you go and topple over and fall and you fracture your hand or something, so there are two ways. One is feeling bad and cursing everyone, and there is another way, it could have been worse. So I am grateful that it's only limited to that. So grateful mode is going to undercut most of your bad things,
Negativity.
negativity. And when that is absent, you're always cursing, you're blaming, you're holding somebody responsible and punishing them. And in this thing, one negativity and enhances more negativity, and suddenly the whole episode ends up consuming your life with negativity. Whereas when you see what has not happened, could have been worse, and be grateful for that, your whole thing changes. Your recovery is much better. You always have to be thankful, right?
And when you said you look for someone to blame and criticize and everything, I think this also ultimately will help our relationships, because a lot of times we look to blame ourselves, which affects our self-love and our self-worth, because we criticize ourselves and we find more to dislike about who we are. But a lot of times we carelessly have to blame others because maybe our ego doesn't let us blame ourselves. And then now we lash out at our spouse or our kids or our friends or whatever it is. And obviously that hurts our relationships too, and it makes us feel bad. So, this is such a great formula of not only improving ultimately our own self-worth, but even our life in general with our relationships. Ratanjit, thank you for sharing so much on this interesting, very interesting topic here today. Our self-worth, our self-love, and how if we have been hating ourselves or disliking ourselves, there's just that's not getting us anywhere. There's obviously a much, much better way and a stress-free way. Ratanji, thank you for again sharing so much with all of us. And thank you to our guests and to all of you, however you're listening and watching. We appreciate and value you. We hope that we've added value to your life. Remember, we're all playing the same game. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are clear, and now we're open to your comments and ideas. Love to hear from you.
Sorry, Brian, we cut you off. You can continue if you want.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. I know we had a short period there, and I really didn't ask a question, but I just wanted to make the point that what you're saying is so powerful, so impactful, and we can all be better at that with our children.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And your comment, sir, I hope you heard your comment in my comments because I was expressing that. You're absolutely right. It's thank you for being so strong with that.
Thank you.
Sahil, did we answer your question?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And I really like the distinction at the start that you mentioned between egoic self-love and your natural self-love. And I think the main point that kind of answered my question as well was the part where how you can improve your self-love. Some people do it by achieving things, and the others do it by condemning others. And that made me think about a lot of things. Like, suppose we're watching a game or something, and the player is not doing well, and you're the first one to criticize him, but you're just making yourself feel good about that by just putting someone down. So it made me think a lot of things. So I really liked those 2 points. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
What's funny. There was a radio personality in Cleveland that his whole segment he would do is at least I'm not that guy. And the whole segment was like, you feel better about yourself by at least saying, well, find somebody else who's worse. Okay. And I'd listen to that and I would say, there's something wrong with that. If the only way I can feel better about myself is by criticizing somebody else, then that doesn't make sense. I don't think that I'm adding value with that, with that whole scenario. And yet we do that, don't we? I mean, we really do, that's instead of just being grateful for what we do have, we have to be critical of somebody else in the process. And
It's
that
natural
doesn't
in
make us
egoic
feel
mode.
yeah,
That's how you're going to do in the egoic mode. It
right.
forces you to do that in the egoic mode.
Yeah. It's kind of almost a natural response, isn't it? If you're in
Yeah.
that way. Yeah. Anybody else have a thought here to share today? I hope this has been enlightening for some of you in some ways. It really was for me. I really enjoyed this one today. Try to express your thoughts and questions.
We have our new guest, Mr. Vaswani. Please unmute. Yeah, and
Came in a little late. I hope he caught a lot of it. Hope enough. I hope that he was able to hear it. And say, oh, please tell your dad I tried to get to as many of the questions as he had prepared in advance. I worked quite a few of them in, but I didn't get to all of them. But tell him thank you for that. I know he was with us most of the show.
Totally, yeah. When I catch him at lunch, I'll let him know.
Okay, good. Thank you. Tell him thanks.
because Ray, you were not covering his questions, he got out of the program.
Maybe he didn't hear. I got to 2 or 3 of them. I tried to work them in.
I think he lost his network or something because he was trying to tune in through my phone, and then we were like, "You attended from the dining table," so he was involved.
I know he wasn't angry. He's too patient and kind to leave because I wasn't asking his questions. Anybody else have a thought they'd like to share today? I guess not. Oh,
Right.
I'm just looking here. Oh, your dad is trying to come back in here. And also
On his back.
on his back, right? On, if you have any last comments, we're about to close off. We waited for you to come back. I apologize for not getting to every question, but I hope you heard most of them were we woven in there.
I can hear that, but I think he's on mute. I can hear him from the hall, but he's trying to speak.
Oh,
But I think
okay.
yeah, can you go ahead?
Yeah. Hi guys.
Oh,
Sorry,
there
I
he
had
is.
to download on the Zoom, so it was taking too much of time. So I had to drop off and come back again. Anyway, so happy that Sahil had already joined in. It was a very different topic today, I would say, than regular. What I was expecting and what actually came out surprised me. So amazing. And the real takeaway was that it's your own self-worth that is more important, and then more you align to your self-worth, more your self-worth improves. That's where your self-love increases, and that connection was very beautiful. That's what I loved the most. I had some questions on the base of the mind, on the hate part of it. The self-hate, does it originate from mind, and does the mind compound that thought?
Sure. Your mind is a data gathering instrument. All the data gathered by mind, people have fed the data. They said you are this, you are that, and basically that mind collects the data and converts that into hatred.
Right. And is there any way that the compounding of the mind that happens, is there any exercise that one can do? Because generally the problem is not that great, but the mind compounds it to next level. So how do you assess the situation that this thing has to be compounded and this has to be, stopped immediately, and, you have to instruct your mind not to get in certain zones? Is there any method or any technique that you would help us, like in your real life, that you would have utilized, because you also would have seen countless number of difficulties in your life? How did you handle it?
Mind is a very beautiful instrument, but it has to be used as a servant, not a boss. As a servant, what you ask the mind is to figure out why should you be grateful for. And mind initially may resist, and eventually would give up and give you the reasons you should be grateful for. So once you start utilizing your mind and controlling your mind's output, you have the end result is whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. And there were two words sitting into that: self-love. Most of the time we do not understand love itself. So how do we graduate to understand self-love?
So ultimately, when you understand the self-awareness that you are the divine force which is enlivening you, and this human body is a temple, you begin you're overwhelmed with it, and eventually you end up loving that divine power and end up loving the temple in which it exists. So there are all kinds of temples. There are some very, very expensive temples, and there are some very, very simple temples. But when you go to the simplest temple, when you see this is this is a house of God, you have the same reverence and respect and love as you would have in the temple, which is uh, millions times more expensive than that. So suddenly the value of the temple is by holding it in it the divine power, not the temple itself. So suddenly your beauty, your size, your color, and all that becomes irrelevant because you are still a temple of God.
Right. So this is how you fix yourself. Now, I have one follow-up question. When people are disturbed from inside or they are not happy with you, they also show some kind of hate. They show some kind of resentment. They show some signs of objection. And if you know that you are trying your best and you are trying to, make life a little better, easy for others, or whatever task that you've taken up in your hand, but there is resistance and there is uh, uh, some kind of a challenge, some kind of hate, some kind of nasty comment, some kind of sarcastic humor. How do you handle those situations?
I'll give you a story.
Mm-hmm.
When I started my business in 73, at that time there were not many people with the turban in that kind of business. And I was in the main business supplying to the highways.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an engineer, chief engineer of Ohio, and he suddenly didn't like me because my turban and my outfit. And he refused to see me.
Mm-hmm.
And as I would go and see his assistant and everyone else, and his assistant would say, I know you are a wonderful guy, but I don't know about my boss. He would not want to see you.
Mm-hmm.
And it so happened there was an accident in Columbus, and the bridge, big steel, big truck with the steel, uh, this thing collided with the pillars of the truck. And
Mm-hmm.
there was a crack in the pillar. Now, the DOT's Department of Transportation immediately declared that bridge to be not non-drivable. And the governor of that state at that time would use that bridge to go to his office. And otherwise, he has to add another half an hour to his travel, go to another route. So when he realized, he called the chief engineer, come on, fix it. I don't want to travel half an hour extra. So this chief engineer was in enormous pressure. And his assistant went to him and he said, this Ratanjit can fix it because he has a, uh, a epoxy which can be injected into the cracks of the structure, and the structure becomes stronger than before, and we can open the bridge overnight. So he suddenly realized his back was against the wall, and he said, "But Ratanjit is not going to see me because I never." So he said, "No, Ratanjit doesn't hold any grudges. He would see you. A simple call from you would make a difference." So eventually he called me. I went to his office, and he said, "Can you fix it?" I said, "All I need is your order." And he gave me the order, and I mobilized the contractor and injected the epoxy into the bridge in the pillar, and suddenly they could open it next morning.
Wow.
So now that engineer eventually became one of my best friends. So you have to not judge others. That person was not bad, but his data was incorrect. All you have to do is change their data. So you don't react with somebody is comment or disliking or liking. You simply understand their data base about you is incorrect. And you have to have patience to find the inroad. The only inroad is to add value. Somehow or other, you have to make a difference. And they will notice that, and they will then begin to listen. And when they listen, you can correct your data.
Thank you so much for that lovely answer. Excellent. Good carry for the day.